Okay, so this now brings us to the assessment, contraindications, and a bit of guidelines on how you move people from the walker to the poles. So of course, you're going to always use your standard testing that you've got for your client for Parkinson's and guidelines for exercise programs. But here's some of the assessment tools that may be recommended: the dynamic balance index, the Berg, the tug. You're going to look for coordination, dyskinesia, rigidity and freezing, walking tolerance, and whether they've got a history of recent falls. You'll also be assessing for judgment and insight, because you want to know, can this client, are they going to be okay with using the poles and negotiating traffic and obstacles, or is this something you really want to just have them use in your gym program? So dual tasking, do they have the ability to learn to do walking and polling at the same time? For some clients, that dual tasking may be too challenging, and you may want to do it on a very gradual basis. So checking out how's their vision, because again, if they're using it independently, they're out negotiating traffic and obstacles. If you have them in a group program, be aware of what their gait pattern is. As I mentioned, get a baseline of their stride length, their gait speed, shuffling gait pattern through that video, and of course, looking at other conditions affecting gait, such as orthopedic hip and knee, and whether they're using a cane or walker already. So that's all sorts of ideas for getting a baseline. I've talked to you a lot about when you can use the poles, but there absolutely are times when the poles would be contraindicated. Or you may decide that you can only use them on one-to-one situation during your treatment programs. So if someone is already a full-time walker user or a heavy cane user, again, they may just need the stability that the walker provides. And another option, what therapists will do is they'll continue to have that person use the walker for their day-to-day activity, but again, during your sessions or maybe during a walk every day where they can really focus on concentrating on the pattern, they're able to use the poles. So it doesn't have, just want to say, it doesn't have to be an all or none situation. Absolutely, there's some clients that are just too far along the spectrum in terms of, and they need the walker, even for indoor walking for short periods. And there'll be other clients where you may be able to do it either on a gradual basis, move them from the walker to gradually using the poles, or you may decide that absolutely they can use the walker, but doing your session, maybe in group exercise programs, or maybe daily walking on their own, you can graduate them to being able to use the activator poles. But again, consult with your rehab professional for long-time walker users. If they've had a lot of recent falls, again, you might want to have them use it under supervision. So I have seen clients with dyskinesia and ataxia. I've seen cases where it actually helps to normalize their walking pattern, but it also, in many cases, could be a tripping hazard. So if your client has quite significant dyskinesia or ataxia or poor coordination, or in other words, just a dysfunctional walking pattern, just be aware that the poles actually could be a tripping hazard. So they are used in Canada here for soft tissue injuries. I've talked to you a lot about using them for shoulder, and they've used it for tennis elbow, but not when the injury is still red, it's inflamed or acute. So during that stage, of course, you're really going to let that person just rest that area more. You're going to wait till that inflammation goes down. You might use the poles for some range of motion exercises that they can just do in a seated position, but you wouldn't want to do resistance or strength training while the injury is still acute. And again, it is used for pre and post hip and knee surgery, but not until the surgeon determines that person's weight bearing as tolerant. I would say for people with Parkinson's, you at least want to wait for week 2 to 8. You do want to make sure if they've got Parkinson's as well, that they already know how to use the poles pre-surgery, because it would be too challenging for them to learn how to use the poles and recover from hip and knee surgery at the same time. The poles were designed for an ergonomic handle to reduce stress for people who've got a stroke, for arthritis. But if they've got severe arthritis in their hands and they need a device for walking, again, the walker may be a more suitable tool for them. We have a study that's done on COPD, but not if it's severe or acute. There's just too much exertion that is required. And you definitely want to use the activator technique if someone has any cardiopulmonary conditions, because there's less exertion required than the urban pulling technique. And again, if they failed your readiness questionnaire, again, you may want to seek the advice of their physician or their rehab professional. And again, assess for appropriateness for the group polling when they're mid to late stage. Particularly if they've had a stroke and they've got a visual neglect, that means that they may not be able to see like the edge of the curbs or sidewalks. So that may be something that you want to be cautious of for outdoor use. Cognitive limitations, we talked about people just having enough judgment to decide in terms of how far they can go, or you can provide parameters around for them. And again, we had talked earlier about the coordination. So those are outlined in the manual as well. I just want to show you how you might make the transition from the walker to the poles. So this is a client that is from Arizona. He's a longtime walker user. This is Carrie. She's a physical therapist. You can see she's using a transfer belt with them. Of course, she's doing supervision to assistants. A lot of times therapists will actually go from behind the client, so let them hold on to the poles in front, but stabilize them from behind with holding on to their hip joints as well. Okay, so let's just take a look at how Carrie is doing this. Giving him a bit of physical assistance there from sit to stand. Now, Carrie is not focusing on opposite arm and leg for this fellow, and you can see he's actually not doing that. She just wants to get him up because his elbow's bent there. She's giving him a little bit of assistance from behind, holding on to that transfer belt. And now what you should see is as he continues on, he's doing a little bit more of an opposite arm and leg there. Okay. And of course, she's just taking him for a very short distance to begin with as well. And so she's just making sure that that transition is very gradual, that he's doing those sessions with her initially until she determines that he is a suitable candidate. So you would gradually increase the use if you wanted to gradually move them from the walker to the poles. And again, it doesn't have to be all or none. You can use a combination. Some therapists actually use a combination of walkers, canes, and activator poles. I'm just going to show you one last video. This is me just, again, therapy assist for gait retraining. This is Jennifer. She's actually had a stroke, and I'm trying to get her to do more weight bearing on that weaker leg. But just to show you an idea of how you can do an assist with trying to get the client to have more of a normal walking pattern and using the poles for that arm swing, giving her a little bit of balance and stability. And again, you having a lot of control over that movement and speed.
Thanks.
So now this brings us back to the guidelines for Rock City Boxing outdoor polling programs. This is for, again, higher level clients, where we'll bring Wendy back in to talk a little bit more about this. One of the handouts that you did get was a checklist for Rock City boxing clinics. We had this in our manual, but we added a few more tips based on advice information from Wendy about just how to customize it more. And of course, this is kind of what it looks like in a group situation. When people are first learning, though, definitely you want to keep them in a single file if they were going on sidewalks and lots of room between people. But this is a group that's been around for a while. So one of the things that I would do first is, even if you've got a higher level group, teach them first in a field or a parking lot or a park. Keep everyone together, because what you're going to find, what I've heard from instructors, is that there will be more variety or variation amongst your participants than a regular walking or running group. For some reason, what you'll find is with the poles, it'll really make some people really speed up and for other people to slow down. So you don't want to bring them on a route initially. You want to keep people together. You want to be able to teach them the technique, and then give yourself an idea of who's going to be the fast and slow walkers. And then you want to think about what are some strategies so you can keep those two groups of walkers together if you're going to keep them together. So some of the clinics I know will just then separate into fast and slow walkers and have two different instructors. You could do a thing called looping, which means that the person who is in front every couple of blocks or at every different landmarks, they will actually pull to the back of the group. You could think of a route that is a circle or a figure 8. And again, just a reminder, single file, keep people single file on sidewalks. You want to go to the inside of the sidewalk. It's a very social activity, and you'll find people chat a lot, but when you're on sidewalks and people are first learning, single file is best, more on the inside of the sidewalk, so that people don't get distracted and go over the curb. Make sure you know your route first. You want to go through and know your route really well yourself. You know what the obstacles are, you know where the rest spots are, you know the traffic. And you've got a way to deal with other pedestrians too. So if you're on the sidewalk, you're going to make a decision. Okay, guys, when a pedestrian comes, we're all going to move to the side. We're going to let them go past. So just make sure you come up with strategy to deal with pedestrians. First aid kit. And as I mentioned earlier, they may want to do both techniques. Wendy's added on as well. And actually, Wendy, do you want to go through this one? This is kind of your list.
Sure. Okay, choosing a site for outdoor classes. So obviously you want to find a place where you have options for people to sit if necessary. Like Mandy was saying, you have your fast and your slow walkers, and sometimes the slow walkers just need a break, depending if how tired they get. In the summertime or warmer months, you just want to look for places that have plenty of shade. And depending on your participants, find a place that will challenge them with different surfaces, such as grass, dirt or sand. What are those, curbs, just to help them to navigate the various scenarios that they may encounter. Also, you want to make sure that there's enough parking that is close by to your meeting place. Make sure to bring extra water, snacks. Some of you might have diabetics where their sugar might drop low, or they might not have eaten really well. And then obviously water, because I'm sure like my people, yours don't like to drink water either, so we know that they need to drink more. And then just be close to some bathroom facilities as well. This one actually is a park that we go to, especially now that it's warmer. It has a lot of trees, so this was just having them practice on uneven surfaces. So this has a lot of pine cones and leaves and pine straw and everything like that. So we had them walking. I think that's a video. Is that a video?
Oh.
Or just a picture?
Just pictures, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And then this is another park we have. We just do a warm-up here. It's like a patio, just doing warm-up exercises and using the voices as well.
Avocado!
So while they were saying avocado, I'm also certified in a program called Let's Face It Together. So we're just having them pronounce the words and using their voices to be loud as well while warming up. And then here you have different multi-terrain options. So flat versus uneven. So the grass warming up challenges your balance a little bit more, proprioception, and then flat, obviously, it's going to be a little more stable for them. And then you just, if you're at a park where you can incorporate the equipment around you, you put that in here. So here we're just doing opposite arm and leg. Whoop.
Oops, sorry.
On the middle one, same thing, opposite arm and leg, but we're using the bench to kind of facilitate a bigger step, bigger movement. And then we have here the park ledge. So just using the step to do those toe taps that we did earlier with the bench. So just whatever you can find at the park, you can add that in there too to do exercises as well. And then this one's a video.
Down. Good. Up and down. And then 10.
So here we just use the steps by the park where the kids are playing, just working on up and down. So kind of facilitates getting up or down on a curb. Obviously being on an uneven surface, their balance is challenged a little bit more, single leg. And then coordination, poles with the steps. And then guidelines on increasing intensity and creativity. You can have a variation in terrain. You can do interval training, you can use hills, you can do obstacle courses in the park, so find curbs, like Mandy said earlier, figure eights, working on those turning pivots, so you can do figure eights. I've done the one park that we're at, there's a bunch of trees, so we do a lot of figure eights around them. Kick tap a tree, chasing the rabbit around the tree, so you can incorporate nature into your workouts. Also, if you have different walking routes in the community, you can do that. Just make sure there is no sidewalk. That one threw me off. Make sure there is a sidewalk, I'm guessing that's supposed to be. And then you can go out into different community adventures as well. So we have here every year, well, COVID, it's been virtual, but we have our American Disease Parkinson's Optimism Walk. That's something that you can bring out to show there and to give people that may not be able to walk as far, that'll help them go a little bit further. You can also create a program for caregivers. And also, if you want, you can get extra sets and do a rental program so they get to try it out, see if they like it, and then they can purchase them as well. So that's an option. And then also just make sure that you have proper insurance coverage while you're out. If you do decide to go out and about into the community, just to make sure if something were to happen that you were covered on that aspect, or maybe even put that into your waiver if you go outside. That way they know that there are, obviously there's going to be challenges and something might happen. So, and then here we go. So just having waivers, park. Let's see. So option, we want to rent poles if they're in the program. You can do demo night where you have instructions. Staff to run paid program. Okay, so you can have your staff to run paid program for caregivers or volunteer to run the program. Another option, you can have clients and caregivers together, start in the park. So maybe sometimes they might not feel safe unless they have their care partner there, or sometimes it may be a little bit of more of a help because if you want to make it a little bit bigger, then you have their caregivers to help with them as well. And oh, I didn't see that last one. Caregivers may want to do polling with their spouse for polling and hiking. Or you could do a once a month event for caregivers, just give them like a day out and just do like a polling class for them as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Wendy. That's those are some great ideas on how to make your program just a little bit more robust, add some variety, and if possible, integrate some of the caregivers. I'm not sure if anyone's got some ideas about how they've integrated caregivers, please let us know through the chat section. Okay, so that is basically has brought us to the end. We've got the summary. I'm going to do a quick summary, going to get you to fill out a survey, and then I'm going to send you a link to the quiz. But just before we do that, does anyone have any final questions or comments to either myself or Wendy before we finalize up the course? Anyone, anything that we didn't cover or? No? Okay, everyone's good. So just want to let you know, at this point, what we'd like you to do is, if you want to make changes to those 2 goals that you wrote initially at the beginning of the course based on the information that you've got, now would be the time that you can review those and make sure that you don't want to revise those. So thank you so much, everyone. Congratulations on becoming a urban polling instructor, or we say activator trained therapist. We actually have a couple logos that can go along with that if you want to ask us that, if you want to put that on your social media or your website, etc. But basically, we gave you a very jammed-packed, I think we can agree, course today. Thank you so much, everyone. I thought everyone was fantastic in terms of participating. I loved your exercise ideas. And thank you so much to you, Wendy. Those were, as always, very creative and so helpful to understand exactly how you can implement it into the Rock City boxing programs. So thank you so much to you, Wendy, as well. So we went through the benefits, the research. We did the urban polling technique for your higher level clients. We talked about the activator technique for your lower level clients. Wendy showed you how to incorporate exercise for higher intensity, higher level clients. I showed you more about the seated exercises for your lower level clients. We talked about people who are physical therapists, how you might transition someone slowly from a walker over to using the activator poles. We talked about guidance, contraindications, and then Wendy talked to you about how do you kind of specialize your outdoor program. Now, as part of our accreditation, we also do need you guys to fill out a survey. If you don't mind, I'm actually going to put this in the chat button right now. Rodrigo's put it in there earlier. I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break too easily, but I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your all. I'll take it to Mars. Oh, I'll stick like glue inside your mind. Oh.